And so we are reading Goethe's fairy tale of the green snake and the beautiful lily. This is part 2. So the talkative old woman tried to draw him into a conversation. She's talking to the prince. But in curt replies, he gave her little information. In the end, in spite of his beautiful eyes, she grew tired of constantly addressing him in vain. She took leave of him, saying, "I'm afraid you walk too slowly for me, sir. I must not miss the moment to pass across the river on the green serpent and bring my husband's wonderful present to the beautiful lily." With these words, she hastened on, but the young man came to his senses just as quickly and hurried after her. "You are going to the beautiful lily?" he cried. "Then we are going the same way. What is the present you are taking to her?" "I don't think it is fair, sir," said the woman, "to inquire into my secrets in such a lively fashion after being so taciturn in reply to my questions. But if you would like to strike a bargain with me and tell me your story, then I won't hide mine from you, nor my present." They soon came to an agreement. The woman told him how things stood with her, the story of the dog, and let him have a look at the wonderful gift. The little pug dog looked so natural lying in the basket it seemed to be resting. The young man lifted it out and held it in his arms. "Oh, fortunate animal!" he cried. "Her hands will touch you. She will bring you to life. But I who live must flee from her, or come to a sad end." "But why do I say sad? Is it not far more grievous and frightful to be paralyzed by her presence than it would be to die at her hands? Look at me," he said to the old woman, "how I have to suffer in my youth. This armor that I wore honorably in battle, this purple cloak that I tried to earn by ruling wisely. Fate let me keep the former unnecessary burden, the latter meaningless adornment. Crown, scepter, and sword are gone, and I am as naked and needy as every other man." Remember that. He is missing 3 things: his crown, his scepter, and his sword. For her beautiful eyes have such an unholy effect that she robs all living things of their strength, and those whom her touching hand does not kill are changed into living, wandering shadows, such as himself. His lament did not satisfy the old woman's curiosity. She was far more concerned with his material position than with his soul. She didn't find out the name of his father or his kingdom. He stroked the hard little pug dog, who was warmed by the sunlight in the young man's breast as if it were living, and asked a lot of questions about the man with the lamp, and the possible effect of the sacred light on his pitiful condition. He seemed to hope for some benefit from it. They were still conversing when they could see the majestic span of a bridge in the distance, reaching from one shore to the other and shimmering marvelously in the sun's glowing light. Both were astounded. Here's the bridge, which is, of course, now it's noon by now, and so the snake regularly makes a crossing at noon for those who wish to go to the other side. And they had never seen the span so effulgent. "What has happened?" cried the prince. "Wasn't it beautiful enough when it stood before our eyes as if made of jasper and quartz?" So the serpent's gobbling up of the yellow coins has transformed the nature of the jewelry. It used to be jasper and quartz, but shouldn't one fear to cross it now that it seems to consist of emeralds, chrysoprase, and chrysolite? Neither of them knew of the change that had come over the serpent, for it was the serpent who arched herself every noon across the river in the shape of a bold bridge. The wanderers stepped onto it reverently and crossed in silence. So now they're going to visit the spirit world, and the green ray chakra at the level of the heart then is what transforms the lower animal passions and desires into the upper spiritual impulses to be of service to others. Those who are negatively polarized to service to self remain stuck in the motivations of the lower 3 chakras, which have to do with power, at the yellow chakra at the level of the belly, and at the level of the genitals with the orange ray energy, with erotic relationships that are specific, whereas the lust at the level of the red ray chakra at the Muladhara is not specific, because in the dark anyone will do. But most people are motivated by those lower 3 chakras, and some of them get glimpses of the love and compassion and the service to others that the green serpent chakra represents. But most people on this planet never get to that point, let alone the upper 3 chakras, which are entirely people who incarnate specifically to be of service to others, not themselves. That's the thing. That's the alchemical process that we're going through on this planet, and it is real. It's not a bunch of Jungian metaphors. It's all real, actual spiritual realities. Jung missed all this. He made the mistake of capturing all of myth and fairy tale inside the human mind. as a bunch of metaphors with no actual ontological spiritual realities beyond the messages, beyond the masks of God, as Campbell put it. And Campbell, too, remained stuck within the Jungian paradigm. He never made it out of the cavern of the human skull into the reality of the spiritual world, which is a real world. Let's see. So they stepped onto it reverently and crossed it in silence. As soon as they reached the other side, the bridge began to sway and move. Soon it touched the surface of the water. The serpent, in her proper form, slithered on land and followed the wanderers. They had just finished thanking her for having allowed them to pass across the river on her back when they noticed that, besides the three of them, others were present, whom, however, they could not see. And these are the will-o'-the-wisps because they're invisible in the daytime. But they could hear a hissing at their sides, and the serpent answering in a similar fashion. They listened and could finally make out the following. "We intend to look around the park of the beautiful lily first, incognito, and we would appreciate it if you would introduce us to this famous beauty at nightfall. As soon as we are presentable, you will find us at the edge of the big lake." "Very well," replied the serpent, and a hissing sound was lost in the air. Now the three travelers discussed in what order they should appear before the beautiful lily, for she could receive as many visitors as she liked, but they had to come and go singly or suffer considerable pain. You have to be ready for the spiritual world, because if you're not ready for it, then you wind up like Semele, who is in the role who wants to see Zeus in his full glory, and he throws a thunderbolt at her, which shatters her to pieces. That's the thing about the spiritual world. You have to work into it gradually through the initiation process. The woman with the transformed dog in her basket approached the garden first and looked for her benefactress, who was easy to find because she was singing to the harp. And there she is, the beautiful lily. And now the lily is an alchemical symbol that represents quicksilver, and it's white, and it's part of the purification process in alchemy known as the albedo, whereas the nigrito is the darkening, the blackening. And alchemy is all about the interaction between sulfur, which is always either yellow or red, and quicksilver, which has the property of being white and purifying. Sometimes it was symbolized by a lily, or sometimes just by the moon and the sun, sulfur, mercury, and so forth. And so here they are appearing before her, but now she is sad, and they want to know why. Let's see. So she's playing the harp. The lovely tones appeared first as rings on the still surface of the lake. Then like zephyrs, they set grass and bush in motion. There she sat in a green enclosure in the shade of a magnificent group of the most varied trees, enchanting the eyes, ears, and heart of the woman who approached, overjoyed and vowing that during her absence the beautiful lily had only grown more lovely. Already from a distance, in a way she represents the top chakra, the Sahasrara chakra, the thousand-petaled lotus. Already from a distance, the good woman called out greeting and praise to the lovely girl. "What a blessing it is to look upon you! What heaven is spread by your presence! How charmingly the harp rests on your lap! Your arms surround it so gently it seems to yearn for your breast, and how lovely it sounds under your slender fingers! O thrice fortunate man who could take its place!" Hermes Trismegistus was called thrice blessed, hence the Trismegistus. With these words, she came closer. The beautiful lily raised her eyes, let her hands sink, and said, "Do not distress me with untimely praise." She's sort of like a fairy queen, like you can imagine her as like Queen Elizabeth. "It only makes me feel my misfortune all the more strongly. Look, my poor canary who used to accompany my singing so prettily lies dead at my feet. He would perch on my harp and was carefully trained not to touch me. Today, when I awoke, refreshed by sleep, and raised my voice to sing a tranquil melody to the morn, and my little bird began to sing more harmoniously and brightly than ever before, a hawk swooped down over my head. In its fright, my poor little bird fled to my breast. At once I could feel how the last twitching of life left it. I gave the bird of prey a look. You can see him down there, slinking helplessly beside the water. She can sort of put a geist on people just by looking at them intensely, kind of like the Medusa effect. But of what use is his punishment to me? My darling is dead, and his grave will help only to augment the sad hedgerows of my garden. Cheer up, beautiful lily, cried the woman, drying the tears the unfortunate girl's tale had caused her to shed. Do not despair. My old man wants you to know that you are to restrain your grief and look upon the greatest misfortune as a harbinger of good luck, for the time is at hand, and truly strange things are happening. Just look at my hand, how black it is, and it really is much smaller. I must hurry or it will disappear completely. Oh, why did I promise favors to the will-o'-the-wisps? Why did I have to meet the giant and dip my hand into the river? Could you give me a cabbage, an artichoke, and an onion? I would bring them to the river, and my hand would be so white again, I could almost compare it with yours. You might possibly still find cabbages and onions, but artichokes you will seek in vain. Of course. There's always a complication in the spirit world. None of the plants in my garden blossom or bear fruit, but everything I break off and plant on the grave of a beloved greens and shoots up at once. Alas, I have seen all these dales, bushes, and thickets grow, this umbrella of pines, these obelisks of cypresses, these colossal oaks and beeches, all were little sprigs planted by my hand as a sad memorial in otherwise unfruitful earth. Interesting, because her garden has only grown from graves that she has buried loved ones in. Life comes from death. The old woman had paid little heed to this speech. She had been watching her hand, which seemed to grow blacker and smaller from minute to minute in the presence of the beautiful Lily. The woman wanted to pick up her basket and hurry off, but then she remembered that she had forgotten the best thing of all. She lifted the transformed dog out of the basket and laid him on the grass, not far from the beautiful girl. My husband sends you this token, she said. You know that you can bring this precious stone to life by touching it. The good, bright little animal will surely bring you much joy, and my distress over losing him will be dispelled by the thought that you own him. So she's bringing the dog, and here he is transformed into life. She can bring stone or dead things back to life. The beautiful Lily looked at the little animal with pleasure, and it seemed with some astonishment. Many signs come together to give me new hope, she said, but alas, isn't it natural to delude ourselves by imagining that good things are on the way when much misfortune is heaped upon us? It often seems that way in life, but on the spiritual path, many blessings are disguises, or many misfortunes are blessings in disguise. What solace can good omen bring to me? My sweet bird's death, the black hand of my friend, the jeweled dog, however precious he may be, whom lamp to comfort me did send. Oh, poor me, right? Far, far removed from every human pleasure, my dire grief the only thing I know. Oh, when will temple stand on bank of river? Oh, when will bridge on shores of river grow? This song, which the beautiful Lily accompanied charmingly on her harp, delighted everyone except the old woman, who listened to it with impatience. She was about to take her departure, but was interrupted again, this time by the appearance of the serpent, who had heard the last two lines of the song, and at once tried to encourage the beautiful Lily. The prophecy of the bridge has been fulfilled, she cried. Just ask this good woman here how magnificent the span is. What was formerly jasper and quartz, and let the light gleam through only around the edges, had become transparent gem. Beryl is not so clear, nor can emeralds be said to have such beautiful color. My congratulations, said the Lily, and may it bring you good luck. But you will forgive me if I do not consider the prophecy fulfilled yet. People can pass across your bridge only on foot, but we were promised that horse and carriage and all types of passengers would be able to cross back and forth on it at the same time. And didn't the prophecy speak of huge pillars that would rise up out of the river itself? These, of course, are the upper chakras that are still buried down below until the spiritual work that the ego has to work on the chakras can bring them up. The old woman, who hadn't taken her eyes off her shrinking hand, now interrupted the conversation to say farewell. Stay one moment longer, said the beautiful Lily, and take my poor canary with you. Beg the lamp, that is the old man with the lamp, beg the lamp to turn the little thing into a beautiful topaz. Then I will restore him by touching him, and with your dear little pug dog, he will be my favorite playmate. But hurry as fast as you can, for when the sun sets, it will begin to decay horribly, and the lovely unity of its body will be forever destroyed. Now, the opposition between the bird and the dog, here in the form of the yellow canary and the orange dog here, is a very, very ancient mythological opposition between the heavenly spirits and the underworld spirits. The dog is almost universally associated with the underworld, as in the case of Cerberus or King Yama's in Indian mythology, his two dogs in the underworld, and so forth. Also in the opposition between Set, who is an animal associated with some sort of a greyhound, and Horus, which is a falcon. These are the two poles at the end of the spiritual world, the two wings of the two hemispheres of the top chakra. Yeah, that's the bird that will take flight when the Sushumna is invaded by the green serpent that goes up it and impregnates spermatically the top chakra, and it illuminates and opens up like Dante's white rose. in paradise. The old woman laid the dead bird on some delicate leaves in her basket and hurried off. "Be that as it may," said the serpent, continuing the interrupted conversation, "the temple has been built." "But it does not stand on the banks of the river," said the beautiful lily. "It still rests in the deeps of the earth, said the serpent. "But I have seen the kings and spoken to them." "And when will they arise?" asked the lily. The serpent replied, "I heard the words echo through the temple, 'The time is at hand.'" A sweet expression of joy suffused the beautiful girl's features. "So I hear those happy words today for the second time. Oh, when will the day come when I shall hear them spoken thrice?" So the magic is that she has to hear that phrase, "The time is at hand," spoken 3 times before the temple will arise. Okay. She rose, and at once a pretty young girl stepped out of the bushes and took her harp. Let's see, are these the 3? So she has 3 maidens who come in, 3 beautiful women who are handmaids, who sort of represent the graces out of Renaissance art. One takes her harp. She was followed by a second girl who collapsed the carved ivory outdoor chair on which the beautiful lily had been sitting and took away the silver cushion under her arm. A third, carrying a huge parasol embroidered with pearls, appeared next and waited to see if the beautiful lily needed her to accompany her on a walk. These 3 girls were indescribably beautiful. Still, their beauty served only to heighten the beautiful lily's, which everyone had to admit was incomparable. Meanwhile, the beautiful lily had been looking down at the wonderful pug dog, and the sight of him seemed to please her. She bent down and touched him. Immediately he leaped to his feet, looked about him brightly, ran back and forth, then rushed up to his benefactress and greeted her in the friendliest fashion. I guess that's what this painting back here was, with where she's just reanimated the dog. Okay, so we're a little ahead on the paintings. She took the little animal in her arms and pressed him to her. "You are cold," she murmured, "and only half alive, yet you are welcome. I shall love you tenderly, play nicely with you, stroke you with affection, and press you to my heart." Then she let him go, chased him away, called him back, and played on the grass with him, so gaily and with such innocence that it was a joy to watch her, and everyone present participated in her pleasure, just as a short while ago her grief had made every heart feel compassion. Her enchanting play was interrupted by the arrival of the sad young man. He appeared on the scene as we already know him, and he's over here with the purple cloak. He appeared on the scene as we already know him, but the heat of the day seemed to have exhausted him still further, and in the presence of his beloved he grew paler with every passing minute. He was carrying the hawk on his hand. The bird sat there, quiet as a dove, its wings drooping. "It is not very friendly of you," the beautiful lily cried as he approached, "to bring that hateful animal before me, the monster that killed my little songbird." "Do not rail against this unfortunate bird," replied the youth. "Rail rather against yourself and your fate, and permit me to associate with the companion of my misery." Meanwhile, the pug dog had never ceased to gambol around his beautiful mistress, and she continued to cater to her little admirer. She clapped her hands to drive him off, and then ran after him to bring him back. She tried to catch him when he fled, and chased him off when he came too close. The youth watched their play, taciturn and miserable, but when she took the ugly little thing in her arms, he found the animal repulsive, and pressed it to her heart, and kissed its little black nose with her heavenly lips, he lost all patience and cried out in his despair, "Must I see with my own eyes how you may play with such a freak of nature, how it attracts you and enjoys your embrace? I, who by a miserable fate must live in a present that is ever separate from you, perhaps forever? I, who have lost everything through you, even myself, how much longer am I to come and go, pacing off the sad circle that takes me back and forth across the river? No, a spark of the old heroic courage still flickers in my breast. Let it rise up now in one last flame. If stone may rest against your bosom, then may I be turned to stone. If your touch spells death, then let me die at your hands." So he's going to run at her in a way, kind of committing suicide. I guess this is him. And then he's going to collapse there. He made a violent gesture, and the hawk flew from his hand as he ran up to the beautiful lily. She stretched out her hands to stop him, thus only touching him sooner. He lost consciousness. Horrified, she could feel his dead weight on her breast. With a scream, she stepped back, and the youth sank, expired from her arms to the ground. A tragedy had taken place. The beautiful lily stood motionless, staring fixedly at the dead body. It was as if her heart had stopped beating, and her eyes were void of tears. The little dog tried in vain to wrest some affection from her. For her, the whole world had died with her friend, In silent despair, she did not look up for help. She knew there was no help. But the serpent became more alert than ever. Her mind seemed bent on salvation, and her strange behavior actually did prevent the most imminent dread effect of the disaster. With her supple body, she drew a wide circle around the lifeless form, took her tail between her teeth, and remained lying there, perfectly still. And then so, I thought we had an image of, yeah, here we go. Let's see, what was this? I guess this is her down here. So she's, the serpent has formed a temenos, what's called a temenos, a sacred circle, around the dead prince for the purposes of beginning the process of resurrecting him. And for that process, she's going to sacrifice herself. Life comes from sacrifice, and especially when higher souls, more evolutionarily advanced individuals, sacrifice themselves for others. Let's see, where were we? Soon one of the lily's beautiful handmaidens stepped forward, brought back the ivory collapsible chair, and with a compassionate gesture begged the beautiful lily to be seated. Then the second one came with a fiery-colored scarf. And I guess here you can see the fiery-colored scarf over here. With it she adorned rather than covered her mistress's head. The third girl gave her the harp, and she had scarcely pressed the magnificent instrument to her and played a few notes when the first girl came back with a bright round mirror and took up a stand opposite the beautiful lily, catching her mistress's glance in the mirror. One wonders if somehow Goethe knew about the Japanese myth of the sun goddess Amaterasu, who one day refuses to come out of her cave. For what reason I've forgotten, but the spirit beings then get a giant mirror and they shine it so that she can see her reflection, and she's enticed, like Narcissus, to come out of the cave by the beauty of her reflection. And presented her with the most pleasing picture to be found in all nature. Pain heightened the lovely girl's beauty, the scarf enhanced her charm, and the harp her grace. Although everyone hoped to see her unhappy condition changed, they could not but wish to see her image held fast as it was now. Notice that this is the world of compassion. We've gone to the other side. The serpent of the fourth chakra has ferried us up the other side to the realm where people are actually empathetic and compassionate and are concerned with the well-being of others. Wouldn't that be a nice place if the world was like that? Looking into the mirror silently, she at first evoked melting tones on the strings, but soon her pain seemed to grow, and the instrument responded powerfully to her grief. Once or twice her lips parted, as if she would sing, but her voice failed her. Soon, however, her agony was dissolved in tears, and two of the girls came to her aid and grasped her under the arm. The harp sank on her lap. The third girl was just able to catch it and lay it aside. "Who will go and get us the man with the lamp before sundown?" the serpent hissed softly, but quite clearly. The girls looked at each other, but the beautiful Lily's tears only flowed faster. Just then, the woman with the basket came back, all out of breath. "I am lost and a cripple." Let's see, that must be the next image. Yeah, here she is, coming back with the basket now. She cried, "Look how my hand has almost completely disappeared. Neither the ferryman nor the giant will put me across the water because I am still a debtor to the river. I have offered it 100 cabbages and 100 onions, in vain. All it wants is the 3 artichokes, and there isn't an artichoke to be found in the entire region." "Forget your troubles," said the serpent, "and try to help us here. Perhaps you will be helped at the same time. Hurry as fast as you can to find the will-o'-the-wisps. It is still too light to see them, but you may be able to hear them laugh and flutter. If you hurry, the giant can still put you across the river, and you can find the man with the lamp and send him to us." The woman hastened as fast as she could, and the serpent seemed to wait for her return with her husband just as impatiently as the beautiful Lily. Unfortunately, the rays of the setting sun were already gilding the crowns of the trees in the glade, and long shadows were falling on lake and meadow. The serpent became restless, and the beautiful lady was again dissolved in tears. In their dilemma, the serpent never ceased looking around her, for she feared that the sun might go down at any moment, and that decay would penetrate the magic circle. Then nothing would be able to deter its attacking the handsome youth. Suddenly she saw the hawk, high up in the sky, its wings purple-red as the last rays of the sun fell on its breast. She shook herself with joy at the good omen, and she was not deceived, for soon they could see the man with the lamp gliding across the lake as if on skates. So he came back even before his wife made it across the river, because he was warned by the spirits that he would be needed with his magical lantern. So here he is, and the hawk up here, and his wife, the old woman, over here. Man was gliding across the lake as if on skis. The serpent didn't change her position, but the lily rose and cried out to him, "What good spirit sends you to us just at this moment, when we have sent for you and are in such need of your aid?" "The spirit of my lamp impels me," said the old man, "and the hawk led me here. The lamp sputters when I am needed, and I look for signs only in the air. Birds and meteors show me in what direction to turn. Be calm, beautiful maiden. I don't know if I can help. One man alone doesn't help, but only he who unites with many at the right time. What we have to do is delay and hope. Keep your circle closed," he went on, turning to the serpent as he sat down beside her on a little hammock and cast the rays of his lamp on the dead body. "Bring the good little canary here, too, and lay him down in the circle." The handmaidens took the little body out of the basket, which the old woman had put down, and obeyed the man. Meanwhile, the sun had set, and as the darkness increased, not only the spirit in the man's lamp glowed, each in its own fashion, but the lily's scarf gave off a gentle light that colored her pale cheeks and her white garment with infinite loveliness, like the roseate hues of dawn. All of them looked at one another in a silent exchange of contemplation, their anxiety and sorrow eased by certain hope. The appearance of the old woman, accompanied by the two scintillating lights, was therefore most welcome. The will-o'-the-wisps gave every evidence of having lived extravagantly in the meantime, so that they sort of represent the soul incarnate in the body and addicted to the pleasures of the material world. For they were very thin, but this did not seem to detract in the least from their good behavior toward the princess and the other maidens. They spoke about quite ordinary things with assurance and vivacity, and seemed to be particularly fascinated by the enchantment the glowing scarf cast upon the lily and her girls. The latter lowered their eyes modestly, and the praise of their beauty served only to heighten it. Everyone was pleased and calm except the old woman, despite the assurances of her husband that her hand could not shrink further as long as his lamp was shining on it. She declared several times that if things went on like this, her noble limb would have disappeared completely before midnight. So, let's see. The man with the lamp had been following the conversation of the will-o'-the-wisps attentively, and was delighted that the lily was distracted and cheered by it. And truly midnight came. No one knew how. The old man looked up at the stars and spoke. "We are assembled here at a most fortunate hour. If everyone stays at his post and does his duty, a universal happiness will resolve our individual pain, just as a universal disaster can destroy individual joy." When he had spoken these words, there was a miraculous clamor, for everyone present suddenly spoke for himself and expressed what he felt he should do. Only the three maidens were silent. One had fallen asleep beside the harp, and here they are all asleep. One had fallen asleep beside the harp, the second beside the parasol, the third beside the stool, and no one could blame them, for the hour was late. The flaming youths, after having bestowed a few pleasantries on the maidens, had turned all their attention to the most beautiful one of all, the lily. "Take the mirror," the old man told the hawk. "Light up the sleeping girls with the first rays of morn, and awaken them with light reflected from on high." All right, so we'll stop here at the end of part 2, and we'll do one more video. I should be able to finish it, this beautiful story.